They laughed at her, mocked her simple dress, and demanded she leave the room, convinced she had no place at billionaire Henry Caldwell's will reading. Eleanor Hart stood quietly among the Caldwell family, their designer outfits dripping with wealth, their scornful eyes fixed on her. Little did they know, the secret Henry had guarded until his final breath would bring them to their knees before the woman they had just humiliated. What could drive a tycoon to leave his fortune to a stranger his family despised? The air in Attorney Langston's lavish downtown office crackled with tension, the scent of old money lingering beneath crystal chandeliers. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the city Henry Caldwell had shaped. The Caldwells arrived in their usual grandeur, Victor Caldwell in a tailored suit exuding privilege, his wife Sylvia adorned with jewels that screamed excess, and Thomas Caldwell, Victor's older brother, freshly flown in from London, looking uneasy in his ill-fitting designer clothes. They whispered confidently about dividing their inheritance when Attorney Langston entered, followed by a woman no one recognized. Eleanor Hart, mid-30s, wore a plain gray dress, her dark hair tied back simply. Her quiet dignity clashed with the Caldwells' extravagance. Sylvia's voice sliced through the silence. "Who is this?" "This is a family matter." Her diamond bracelet glinted as she waved dismissively. Victor adjusted his silk tie, his face mirroring his wife's contempt. Thomas watched silently, his expression unreadable. Langston cleared his throat. "This is Miss Eleanor Hart, invited per Mr. Caldwell's explicit instructions." Victor stood, towering over the room. "There's been a mistake. My father wouldn't invite a stranger." His tone was a command, not a question. Sylvia smirked, expecting Eleanor to crumble. But Eleanor met Victor's glare calmly. "I'm here at Henry Caldwell's request," she said, her voice steady, educated, throwing Victor off balance. Sylvia laughed, sharp and cruel. "What was the relationship to my father-in-law? His maid? His mistress?" The insinuation hung heavy, designed to wound. Langston intervened. "Mr. Caldwell's instructions were clear. Shall we proceed?" The Caldwells sat, isolating Eleanor at the table's far end. Langston opened a sealed envelope, the Caldwell crest glinting on its wax seal, and began to read. "I, Henry Caldwell, bequeath all my assets, properties, and holdings to Eleanor Hart." The words detonated. Sylvia screamed, her composure shattered. Victor's confident smirk froze in disbelief. Thomas's eyebrows lifted, his gaze sharpening on Eleanor. She sat still, a faint, knowing smile on her lips, not triumphant, but heavy with truth. Chaos erupted. Sylvia jabbed a finger at Eleanor. "This is fraud." She manipulated him. Victor was already on his phone, barking at his lawyer, pacing like a caged lion. Thomas stayed seated, studying Eleanor with growing curiosity. Langston pressed a remote, lowering a screen. Mr. Caldwell recorded a statement to clarify his decision. Henry's frail but sharp-eyed image appeared. "I've left everything to Eleanor Hart," he said, his voice weak but resolute. "She alone cared for me as a person, not for my wealth." Victor slammed the table. "She was his nurse. She preyed on his illness." Sylvia seized the theory. "We'll contest this. He wasn't himself." But Henry's video continued. "Eleanor is the only one who saw me, not my fortune. There's also a sealed letter, to be opened with the whole family present, including those you don't yet know exist." The cryptic words silenced the room. Thomas spoke first. "What did he mean by those you don't know?" Langston produced another envelope. Sylvia snatched it, tearing it open. Her face shifted from rage to confusion, then horror, before she thrust it at Victor. Eleanor spoke, her calm voice cutting through. "I wasn't Henry's nurse, though I cared for him in his final year. I'm a medical professor specializing in the rare disease that killed him." Victor, pale, stared at the letter. "This can't be true." Thomas read it, his eyes widening. Eleanor gazed out the window. Henry sought redemption for a wrong that haunted him, a wrong that shaped my life. Sylvia's laugh was brittle. How convenient, his redemption makes you a billionaire. Thomas folded the letter, his voice soft. You're not after the money, are you? You want the truth. Eleanor nodded. Langston presented a leather journal, Henry's private thoughts. It detailed a meeting with Eleanor at a medical conference, her selfless treatment, and his realization that his family awaited his death for their inheritance. The final line, in shaky handwriting, read, Eleanor Hart is not the only one tied to this family, though none carry the name. The next morning, Detective James Carter sat in his cluttered office, hired by Victor to dig up dirt on Eleanor. A veteran investigator, Carter was cynical but thorough. He studied Eleanor's modest life, a schoolteacher, living simply, with a single photo of her leaving Langston's office. Across town, Eleanor noticed an unmarked car outside her apartment, a telephoto lens glinting briefly. She sighed, drew her curtains, and reviewed lesson plans, ignoring calls from reporters. Carter's background checks revealed Eleanor's past as a brilliant medical researcher with a PhD from Yale, who inexplicably switched to teaching. Sylvia, meanwhile, searched Henry's mansion, finding a photo of a young Henry with an Asian woman, labeled Henry and Clara Wen, MIT Symposium, 1969. Carter's interviews painted Eleanor as private but exceptional. Her former research director called her Nobel-worthy, baffled by her sudden career shift. Her school colleagues adored her but knew little of her life. Carter found no fraud, no ties to Henry before his illness, except her expertise in his rare disease. The breakthrough came when Carter linked Eleanor's research to Henry's condition. She had pioneered treatments that defied medical norms, offering hope where others failed. But why leave her everything? And who were the unknown family members? As Carter reached for his phone, it rang with a disguised voice. Stop investigating Eleanor Hart, or I'll expose the Caldwell legacy's dirty secrets. The call ended abruptly, leaving Carter reeling. The first court hearing was tense, presided over by Judge Margaret Pierce, immune to wealth. Victor and Sylvia sat confidently with their legal team, while Eleanor, with only Langston, faced their glares calmly. Thomas sat apart, observing. Langston submitted Henry's journal, detailing his diagnosis, Eleanor's treatment, and his family's indifference. Victor's lawyer objected, but Pierce admitted the journal, silencing the room with its revelations of Henry's regret and Eleanor's compassion. Sylvia erupted, calling it a character assassination. Pierce warned her of removal. The journal's final entry stunned all. My fortune is meaningless without integrity. Eleanor taught me this. My greatest wrong was against Clara Wen, whose brilliance I exploited, whose love I abandoned, whose child I denied. Victor paled, Thomas nodded as if confirming a suspicion, and Sylvia looked lost. Pierce ordered a recess for further evidence, warning against withholding information. Thomas met Eleanor privately, suspecting her connection to Clara Wen, Henry's research partner and lover. At a quiet cafe, Eleanor confirmed Clara was her grandmother, erased from Blackwood Pharmaceuticals' history by Henry's father, Edward Caldwell, for racist reasons. Clara's daughter, Lily Wen, was Eleanor's mother, and Henry's unacknowledged child. Thomas, realizing Eleanor was his niece, vowed to support her quest for truth. Victor, searching Henry's mansion, found a hidden safe with a key and a note. The truth always surfaces, Victor. Control its damage. The safe held Lily's birth certificate and an agreement between Edward and Henry, erasing Clara's contributions for funding. Victor's world crumbled. At the final hearing, he withdrew his objection, admitting new evidence had changed his view. Eleanor testified, detailing her anonymous outreach to Henry, their bond, and Clara's stolen legacy. She declared the fortune meaningless. Her goal was restoring Clara's name and advancing research. Judge Pierce upheld the will, urging Eleanor to honor her family's legacy. A year later, Henry's estate became the Caldwell Institute for Genetic Research. Eleanor opened it with a speech honoring Clara, announcing a treatment for Henry's disease based on her grandmother's work. Thomas beamed with pride. Victor attended with his daughter, Olivia, showing tentative reconciliation, while Sylvia was absent, her marriage dissolved. In Henry's former study, Eleanor opened a box he had left her, containing Clara's journal, an unsent letter, and a ring engraved with molecules, a symbol of love. Looking over the institute, Eleanor knew justice, though delayed, had prevailed. The Caldwell fortune now funded ethical innovation, and Clara's name stood alongside Henry's, a partnership restored. What would you choose, truth and dignity or money and power? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's spark a debate. Is it ever okay to mock or humiliate someone in a family dispute, as the Caldwells did to Eleanor? Drop your take and let's keep the conversation going.